Replace Steve Rodriguez. We are now joined by UCF AD Terry Mohajir on Sikkim 365 Radio and 365 Sports. Terry, we really appreciate your time. And we have an audience that's grown nationally since even late July when the Texas-Oklahoma story hit, but also because of the expansion of the Big 12. Could you imagine that it was going to go as fast as it did for you and the others, and also even a year later be able to play in the Big 12?
Yeah, I can imagine. First of all, thanks for inviting me on your show, and it's pretty cool coming after David Murphy. That's exciting, and it's nice to meet you. Yeah, no, actually, we were ready. So I think we were ready to go, and it wasn't that it's just about timing, and there was a crack in the door, and I think we were prepared to do it, and we were just happy that we got the invite.
How long, has the process been? I know that you weren't the athletic director when they started doing things like building new stadium and all of that, but when the decision was made, this needs to be a Power 5 program, how long has that really been in the process for UCF? I think
it started when they started beating Power 5 teams on a consistent basis. And, one of the things that I knew, I left a pretty good situation to come here because I thought that there was an opportunity and to get into the Power 5. Plus, it fits my personality. And, this is a really, really edgy fan base, and they're very active. I think right now in the Big 12, we're the second largest living alumni base behind Texas in the Big 12. So we're in the average age of our alumni is 38. How about that? So I think this all kind of goes together. You're very savvy. It's a very good academic school. This campus was started by the Kennedy Space Center. 30% of NASA's employees are our graduates because of our engineering, aeronautical engineering. And so I think our folks and our key stakeholders in our community was ready to go when this week we get back, we solved the crack. And the day that I got here, we started preparing for it with the right materials and the right going out, talking to people, and it all worked out.
How much did you see untapped potential early on coming on board of how much there still is left to explore with this fan base and all the capabilities that the UCF has?
The sky's the limit. I knew a lot about the school. I worked at another startup program at Florida Atlantic University with Howard Schnellenberger for 7 years. And we built a stadium. So I did a lot of research on the stadium before we built theirs. They built theirs before UCF built their stadium about a couple of years before we did. And so I kind of really did a lot of research, seeing the trajectory, but I saw how things on this campus changed when they moved from the Citrus Bowl to campus, and just the fan base. We get about 12,000 students a game. That's good for any program in the country. We're young, we're youthful. We've got some work to do on operating capital, some facilities. But as far as a location and bringing new eyeballs to the Big 12 and having 3 time zones, this is going to be a fantastic. And my familiarity with the Big 12, I worked in the Big 12 twice.
Yep.
And I was there when the Big 12 merged with the old Southwest Conference, and I was there the second time when TCU was added into the conference, and Nebraska and Colorado left. So this is my 6th conference realignment, and so I had a little. Unfortunately, I had a little experience with it, so it's just been a really good opportunity for us.
For those that don't know, Terry was at Kansas a couple of different times as a part of his career resume before now at UCF. Terry, there's no question that UCF is a growing brand. There's no doubt about that. The Big 12 has reached out to schools before, and as Paul mentioned, it did not work out. After the Texas and Oklahoma story popped, how soon did either Bob Bowlesby or somebody within the Big 12 or somebody representing the Big 12 contact you?
He didn't contact. I sent a note to him.
All right. What did you say? What was the kind of an idea of what you said? I didn't
say anything because we're in the current conference. I just, here's my contact info.
Okay.
And so here's my contact info, and then that was it.
Okay. All right. That's self-explanatory.
Don't know why you would want this, but if you did want it, here it is.
You want to play a bowl game?
Best of luck to you during conference realignment. Here's my contact info.
Terry, how big is it for you guys to be able to make this move while the big three, Miami, Florida State, and Florida, are all also in transition right now?
Well, when you say in transition,
at least football-wise.
Yeah, I think I think the timing is good. I mean, you can see in recruiting, we're battling everybody in our state and in the region and the SEC and the ACC. We're getting PSAs, prospective student athletes to commit to us, even over some of the blue bloods. And I think a lot of that has to do with our fan base, the eyeballs, the region that we're in. The location, the Metropolitan University. We got to, you guys, when we're all in the league together, you have to come here. We have a really nice campus, but in a very, very nice metropolitan area. And I think that's going to be the wave of the future. I really believe that. I think with NIL and all the opportunities of what you do life after college, I think some of the traditional college towns that don't have a big metropolitan base to draw from are going to struggle.
What were some of your first conversations like with Gus Malzahn when the opportunity presented itself?
Well, I mean, look, I was hired and I had to hire a football coach in February. So you can think about all the contracts, all the assistant coaches were all buttoned up and, everybody renewed. So, Gus was available. So that was good. And I was the biggest, questions I had for him is, when you put your heart and soul into something in coaching football, and those of you that are listening that knows that, especially in Texas, think about the high school coaches, everybody put their heart and soul in the game, and then you have something so traumatic happen to you. Are you ready to get back in it? That's the question you ask, and that was really more than anything. Was like, hey, do you really feel like you're ready to go? And he's like, yeah, I've been out for 6 weeks. I can't see it. I'm ready to go. It's like I'm ready to go get back in it. I can only play golf so much, and that kind of stuff. So he was ready to go, and he got here, and he saw the campus, and he started recruiting and putting together a staff like his hair was on fire. And he hadn't stopped yet, and we had a little bit of a blip with his wife's situation this past year. Had some serious health issues that were really scary, and we were able to navigate through that. Or he was, and he's back on track, and just working his tail off. We've got high level recruits coming here every single day, and the weekends, and so he's off the race, doing really well. We're doing excellent in recruiting and staff and all that kind of stuff.
Terry Mohajir, he's the director of athletics at UCF, with us on Sikkim 365 Radio, 365
Good job
Sports.
On pronunciation, too. Hey, great job on pronunciation. Excellent.
Well, you have a last name like mine or Craig's. It's Smoak, but it's Smoak. You try to get it right, and I'm glad I did. And Mark Daniels helped me, and so did your media communications. I know you played Florida in December. I know you have them on your schedule in the future. There are other schools in Florida that Paul brought up that I think would make natural non-conference series. Is that a problem?
No, it's not. We're trying. It's just a matter of people wanting to play and their schedules, filling up. And when I got the job, we didn't have any games. As a matter of fact, I still needed a game. I got hired last February. I still needed a game for last fall, and I had to get 2 games for this fall. That's like the 12th hour, and so we're just behind the 8 ball. I'm trying to get some teams, in-state teams, to play. This year we're not leaving. We're only leaving the state of Florida 3 times this year. We play FAU and. We play at South Florida this year, so the rest are our home games. And so that's what we want to do. What football is meant to be played in front of people. And the closer proximity that you are to your fan base, the better it is. If you can schedule non-conference games. So we'll continue to try to do that. Our fan base is used to going to Texas, used to going to Oklahoma, used to going to Cincinnati. So it's not, they've never been to Iowa before. it's not going to be unusual for them to come to to Baylor and TCU and Houston, and we got a really robust alumni base in Dallas and in the Houston area. So I think we're gonna travel very well, and I think the Big 12 fan base is going to see the power of our alumni.
Do you have a good Howard Schnellenberger story? I mean, you got to work with a legend like that, so you got to have some.
I worked for him for 7 years, drove him up the coast of Florida for a long time. I got some great Howard stories, and he is. Well, what kind of story do you want?
I'd like to hear. I mean, he was the one, for people who might be watching don't know, but I mean, really, he's the one who kicked college football. He and Bobby Bowden got there at the same time, but I mean, what he did at Miami, and he kind of kicked college football into high gear in Florida when it wasn't when he got there. So he's a legend, and he was kind of I always saw him as kind of a character anyway, just because of the suit and the mustache and the way he carried himself. But did you have any funny stories about him?
He was probably one of the most influential people I ever worked for in this business. I learned more from him than any other administrator or anybody else. He was just a really smart person, high-level athlete, person, class act. And so one little story I'll tell you real quick that's kind of funny. Howard was big into getting helicopters to recruit, and he would take helicopters in South Florida. It's just a lot easier because of the traffic. You got 95 and you got 81A, and so it's just easier to get from high school to high school and going in town and get a lot quicker. And so one of his very first staff meetings he had, he was talking to somebody and he was saying, we need to get some helicopters. And this one of the ops people says, "Coach, I have no idea how to get a helicopter. How do you get a helicopter?" He looked at him. He had his pipe, smoked it, took about 3 puffs of the smoke, and he says, "I suggest that you open the yellow pages and start with the letter H."
There you go. There you go.
So those little things like that, just he was just really good to everybody, and he literally. Everybody loved him. When I worked with him, Jim Kelly, Jim Bird, Bernie Kosar, all those guys would come back to visit him, so I got the chance to visit with him. One of my highlights of I went to a Make-A-Wish Foundation dinner with Howard Schnellenberger and Bobby Bowden, and that was one of my best dinners I ever had. I got to sit next to two of my favorite coaches of all time, and having worked for Glenn Mason at University of Kansas, and he was fantastic too. Learned a lot from him too. So I was very influenced by a lot of football coaches.
Terry, you have a lot of upgrading that you're doing. The facilities, you've announced that. There's no question the timeline is there. What are the priorities in order, or at least in somewhat order, do you have right now?
Well, after seeing Baylor's new facilities, I gotta go. We got a lot of work to do. So
yeah.
The priority is a little bit of it. We're going down 3 parallel tracks. We got operating capital, meaning your annual budget. We've got maintenance, making sure that you're upgrading and repurposing some of your facilities, and then we have new capital stuff. And so we're going down those 3 parallel tracks. We got to do them all at the same time, and we're behind the Big 12 on funding, obviously the other schools in the Big 12. And so, we're trying to do that. We put together this Mission 12 plan that we put on our Microsoft site that kind of illustrates what we got to do to compete in the top half from a funding standpoint in the Big 12, not only from operating capital, but also personnel, where we are. And in some areas, we're right there. A lot of our women's sports, but then some of our men's sports, we got a lot of work to do. I think we have outstanding coaches that can compete in the Big 12 right away. But we do have some other things that we haven't been doing that we're going to have to do, like the charters and things like that we do sometimes for men's and women's basketball, but not some of the other sports like they do in the Big 12, like baseball, softball, volleyball, and some of those. We're going to have to invest in that, and we will. But that's just a transition the next 2 years.
Terry, I know that they've had like these meetings where Oklahoma and Texas are included, and then they talk about the future, and it's like they go out the door for a moment. It's been kind of weird, but then, you and the other school representatives have been involved in that now as well. But what's it just been like to kind of get to know those who you haven't known and get to see some of the people that maybe you knew previously as far as Big 12 leadership goes, and sit down and start having some of the conversations about the future?
Oh, it's really good. Every conference has its own culture, and you're trying to learn, just kind of the culture of the room. And I've known Joe Castiglione for a long time. I served on the college football playoff selection committee, and I served on with Joe, so I got to know him very well, and I'd say we're friends. So that, him being in the room is just normal to me, and obviously Del Conte's in there too. He seems like a nice fella, and so just getting to know some of the other ADs. I knew Jamie Pollard. I knew Mac a little bit when he was at Mac Rose a little bit when he was at Houston. So and getting to know Jeremy and it's been good and spending a little time with them and learning a little bit more about the league and the league since I've not been in it. But as far as the towns and I've been to almost every. I've never been to Lubbock, but like Kirby Hokut was a player when I was a football coach at Kansas. How about that?
Yeah.
So I mean, so it was you got a lot of commonalities, and I was born in Southwest Kansas. My dad worked in the pipelines out there, and grew up in the Kansas City area. So going to the Big 12 basketball tournament is going to be fantastic, and as you guys know, it's a great location, and I'm excited for our fan base to go attend this tournament.
It seemed like it has been a whirlwind. Late July, the story about Texas OU. And just a few weeks later, it was the addition of UCF, Houston, Cincinnati, and Brigham Young. And now, all of a sudden, you're going to be able to start playing football in the conference in almost a year, at least to be accepted to start playing football in about a year. Has it been a whirlwind, almost a blur in some ways to you?
Yeah, it's been, and then just, the challenges of trying to, when you're negotiating to leave the conference a year earlier. That's been a little bit of a challenge been going on, but it was very professional, and we got that done. And I know there was a little bit of, angst on the Big 12 part, how they're going to do schedules. And so we're glad to get that resolved. And, once we found out, one of my first calls was to the conference office, and I also called Jamie Pollard, which is the current chair of the Big 12 ADs. And so I let him know that this was happening. He was excited. And I just think it's the Big 12 is in really good shape. And I know the AD at BYU fairly well. And I know, of course, the guys that are coming in, John Cunningham and Chris Pesman, and you're getting a lot of really strong, I believe, ADs added to a group of really strong ADs. And this is very exciting. Some of the analytics that they shared with the viewership, our rankings, where we rank, and it's we're poised to be the best football conference in the country.
Terry, welcome to the Big 12. I know there's a little bit of time, but you're in, and the fan bases are excited. I think it was almost like it wasn't flawless, but it surely did happen in a hurry with what Bob Bowlesby and company did. Thank you very much for your time. We look forward to seeing you soon and also talking with you again as well. Thanks for your time.
Appreciate it. Thanks for everything.
The Director of Athletics at UCF, Terry Mohajir, with us on Sikkim 365 Radio, 365 Sports. Cincinnati's Director